if you've got a question, I'll be talking about networking. And again, this is not like the definitive talk on networking, but again, I think just to kind of demystify some things, we'll get started with this piece, right? So building a network of personal and professional connections is the overall topic. But I really want to mention this is that building this tribe of others, right? This tribe of people that are encouraging, that are supportive, that are passionate. This is incredibly essential to having an awesome life. And I don't know anybody that wants a below average life or even an average life. I think the folks that I try to spend as much time with as possible really want awesome. And so I want to kind of hit you with this one coin. Of course, coins have two sides, and then talk a little bit about your experiences networking and connecting with other people. Because again, networking kind of has this scary overtone to it. And then we'll get through a couple of pointers, and then I'd be wide open to fielding any questions that you guys would be interested in chasing. So here's the coin, right? So connecting with people that are like us, that maybe we come from the same part of the country or the world, that we came to UTC for the fact that we like Chattanooga, or that this is not Knoxville, or whatever. That we're majoring in the same thing, that we live in the same residence hall, that we are at Mind the App together at the same time. So connecting with people that are like us is relatively easy, right? So you find that one thing that we have in common, and you build from there. And then maybe that one thing becomes the second thing, becomes the third thing, and then you choose to do a couple of things together. Like you're going to go on this awesome and amazing trip your senior year. That's great. That stuff happens sometimes. But again, that whole notion of connecting with people that we have a lot of things in common with, that's kind of a thing. But making connections with people who are very different from us, that can be really challenging. And I just want to kind of leave that there for a second, because I'm thinking through people in my life, and I work with Lindsay, and I can't wait to get to know Trevor a little bit. But there are people in my life that are surprised to hear me say this, but there's some people that don't like me, and I say that tongue in cheek, but it can be a challenge sometimes to connect with people from nowhere, even from a place of disconnect. And some of that disconnect can be informed by prejudice, by learned discriminatory kind of thoughts, and et cetera. So like, well, this is who I am, and this is who I perceive you to be. And so these groups are at odds with one another, so therefore I'm going to dislike you. Like, that happens all the time. And it's hard to overcome that, because there's so much reinforcement for being right. And again, if I'm right, that makes you wrong. And if you're right, that makes me wrong. And I don't like that. And so we have this inborn desire to be viewed as correct and authoritative and, in charge, all these kind of cultural values that really keeps us separate from one another. And I just really want to challenge you guys just to think about how networking has what your experiences have been. Has it primarily been through a screen? Has it been face to face? Has it been in small groups? Has it been around causes or organizations that you care about? Tell me a little bit about how you have built some personal and or professional connections. I guess I should open up the chat.
I know.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I know Mon and I earlier, last year? Yeah, or in the fall, we attended a networking event for, it was kind of, we're just getting, I think it was occupational health. Is that right, Monica?
Yeah.
And it was, and we didn't realize it was, an international sort of talk. And so we kind of hopped on, and we were to meet people in the Tennessee area, and then we met random people just around the world, and it ended up being a really cool experience. But I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying about meeting people that are, completely different than you, so I feel like that was a good opportunity.
Cool.
And kind of like going off of that, like I think I'm like you said that networking kind of has a scary connotation because like even though I went there, like I didn't add those people on LinkedIn, even though in my mind I probably should have, because I
Okay.
think in my mind I still associate networking with like, oh, how can I like use you, even though it's like totally not the case, but it's just like I want to try and get away from like that idea.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so glad that you surfaced that in the first few minutes of this talk, because I agree with you. I think LinkedIn, um, it can feel that way. And I think it feels that way until it doesn't. And usually, one way to move through that is like, I mean, I've been coaching folks on LinkedIn for years, and it's always like, you've got to get to 2,000 first degree connections. You've got to get to 500 first degree connections before people see you, and all that stuff. And so it's just like this numbers game. And I've always pushed back against that. And I said, I don't need 2,000 people to introduce me to an opportunity. I just need one. And so then you get into this quantity quality thing. And I would much rather have 5 people in my corner that know me well, that are invested in me and I'm invested in them, than have 500 people who probably have heard my name in an email or something, but they have no idea what I'm about. And so I think a platform like LinkedIn can become like that, where it's a great place to try out something of a personal brand or a profile, and then back that up by connecting into smaller groups, organizations, and then but some of the stuff that has really made the difference for me, and I identify as an introvert. Again, people in my life are like, "There's no way you're an introvert." I'm like, "Promise." Um, so so it's changed for me when I would just reach out to someone that I've been on LinkedIn with for, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months. I'll just reach out and say, "Hey, I'm not looking for a job. I'm not looking necessarily for advice. I'm not interested in you hiring one of my students into an internship role, but I'd love just to hear how you're doing and what challenges you're facing. And maybe if I can add some perspective, or at least someone outside of your organization that would give you a non-judgmental ear. Would that be of interest to you?" And people have gone bananas for that. And again, this is not like a gambit. This is not like a technique. This is not like some kind of a super sneaky networking thing. This is me being genuinely and authentically interested in other people. And there's this guy, I've read like 3 of his books. His name is Bob Goff. I don't know if you guys know him or not, but Bob Goff says, "I used to want to fix people. Now I want to be with people." And I think that's in my head. It's in my, it's in my ear a lot, because I have that personality. My mom built it into me. It's been reinforced by a lot of folks, where do your best, and by doing your best in front of people, they'll probably follow your example, so you can help them be better them. I was like, maybe. So I bought into that for a long time, but now I've got to this place where I don't necessarily want to fix people. I just want to be with people. And that's some of the ways that LinkedIn's changed for me. And like, I know this has been billed as like a student virtual conference, but when I would go to like a face-to-face conference way back in 2020, 2019, um, like I would go to the sessions, but it's the conversation standing in front of the water bubbler, and it's the walking between buildings, and saying, "Are you still at Notre Dame? Tell me about tell me about what's going on there." Or, "Oh gosh, I heard this awesome thing, this great program that happened in Miami. So tell me, were you part of that?" That kind of thing. So investing in people in an authentic way always pays dividends, because you learn something. And if anything more than that, then that's just gravy. But again, the opportunity to know people, because again, in Zoom land, and then in social distance and pandemic, I think that's been threatened directly, is this notion of connection. And so understanding who people are, I think that's really, really powerful. So thank you so much for sharing that, and for being just bold, crazy bold, just to jump into this random mixer and meet people. I think that's awesome. I wish I was that brave when I was your age. So I've got 6 or 7 slides. I forgot to count them, so this won't take long, but I hope there's something here. So again, I think the best way to connect with people is to listen to them, right? To pay attention. Um, I think that a lot of people mess this up, and I don't know if they realize they're messing it up, but a lot of times folks are just waiting for their turn to talk, or they're like drafting, like they're going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and then they're going to say this, and this doesn't feel like a conversation between people. This begins to feel kind of like Mad Libs or some kind of a game you'd play in the back of a car on a long ride, where you're scripting out both sides of the conversation in your head, and no one's listening. It's just I'm just reading off my lines, and again, when you're doing that, you're not paying attention. You're not connecting heart to heart, mind to mind, thought to thought, eye to eye with folks. So again, it's important to make eye contact. And again, it's not that scary eye contact. We're trying to peer through their soul, but it's comfortable contact, like you're talking with someone over coffee or a bagel. And again, it's definitely the Gen Zs and all the other generational literature that I've read. A lot of people describe them like the older generation says, oh, they're always just stuck in their phones, and they're always kind of scanning their phones to make sure that they're not missing anything out. Don't do that. To the very best of your ability, don't write literature that overgeneralizes one anecdote. That's one. But two, if you can, limit your distractions. I've adopted this, and I like it. My wife loves it. Well, I'll put my phone in my glove box or the center console of my car when I'm driving places. And I don't drive very far anyway, so I know my way around town, so I don't need GPS. But again, that keeps me present and focused in on the road, and also on the people that I'm riding with. So the second kind of, again, this is not like, wow, what a great presentation, I learned so much. But the second thing is ask questions, right? In every conversation, the focus should be gaining more information, getting to know the other person. And I think that that's one of those psychology secrets that we all like to talk about ourselves. Some folks are a little less comfortable with that. But typically, if someone's at a networking thing and you're there as well, and they're kind of uncomfortable and you're kind of uncomfortable, it's like a race to say, what brought you here? Tell me a little bit about yourself. What are you majoring in? And how's your week been so far? People like those questions because they know those answers, right? So like, well, I saw that this program is advertised in my residence hall, and a friend of mine was going to meet me here, but he couldn't show up at the last minute, so I just decided to come anyway. Great, I'm so glad you're here. We got a chance to meet because of that. So thinking about the right kind of open-ended questions, like you don't want to say, so are you new here? Yes. And so you've really got to get engaged. And so asking open-ended questions would be really, really great. And again, if you know who you're going to be meeting with in advance, or maybe like for instance, a career fair, like do you guys like going to career fairs? Not a lot of people. I mean, some people do. I mean, I kind of like them because I see a lot of friends there. But again, a lot of people will go to a career fair and they're like, I hope this is going to work for me. And it's like, friends, we published the list of who's going to be there. Like you've known for 3 months that the FBI and TVA and all these really great companies are going to be there. So do a little bit of research ahead of time. It's going to help to add depth to your questions and in your conversations. Remembering someone's name, again, I think some of the very important work we've been doing as a society to kind of recognize inequality. I think it's this appreciation that I'm seeing, that my identity is not diminished or it's not devalued, but it's celebrated. I think that's super important. And I think knowing someone and calling them by their name is super important. For instance, like I earned a doctorate a couple of years ago and everyone wants to call me Dr. Liddell. And like, I get that. I mean, I earned it. I appreciate that. But I've been Rob a lot longer. And if you're going to have the courage to call me Rob, we're going to be friends really, really quick. Because again, Dr. Liddell is this guy that works at a university, but Rob is this guy that I have conversation with. And so calling someone by their name is a really important aspect about connecting with people. And again, there's a lot of tricks to doing this. Like I'm really good at faces, pretty good with names. But for me, if I can introduce you to someone, right? So like, Trevor and Monica and Braden, you guys are all hanging out with us today. And so I'm going to probably remember, probably in this order that it's on my screen, that Monica's here, then Braden, then there's Trevor, and then there's Lindsay. And so I'll know your names because I've got some point of reference. But if I can introduce you to other people, so wouldn't it be neat if you knew someone from another conversation and you're meeting someone else and you can introduce the two of them, and then you'd have three people that are talking, and there'd be an opportunity for you to get connected with others. People love that. I hope that you appreciate that as well. And again, this whole notion of networking being this scary thing where it's very transactional about, well, I've got to kind of hold my nose and go networking. That doesn't have to be that way. I think it's important at just your visualization exercises. And we've got some friends at Vanderbilt, Kate Brooks and Grace Foy, and they developed this resource that if you guys will send me an email, I'll be happy to send it to you. But effectively, it's all about visualization exercises to kind of help you plan for your career and your professional development. It's a terrific program. And I started going through some of those exercises on my own because I wanted to know about them before I endorsed them. But I was impressed by how important it is to visualize things. So what you see inside your mind before you begin something, that's going to impact the way you experience it. And so again, if you walk into networking and it feels yucky, you're probably going to have a yucky time. But if you walk into a room and you see a room full of friends you just can't wait to meet, again, that's going to continue to reward you with great connections and great relationships, and it's going to decrease the intimidation factor. I think these are really important steps that are kind of included towards the end. So again, don't pretend that you know everything. I think that's the best way to stop a conversation, when you project like you're the expert that, well, you don't offer me anything as far as information or insight. So I'll look for the next smartest person in the room. So again, that's a really unattractive way to connect with people. There's a t-shirt I saw at a Mexican restaurant one time about your ego is not your amigo. I should have bought it because I think that's awesome. But again, having your ego in check, so being reflective about who you are and how you project yourself, I think that's super important. Can you guys hear me still? Okay, good, because my AirPods quit. So be willing to learn from other people and take advice. I mean, I think that, they always say that the best ability is availability. And I think that the best quality of a leader, or as anybody really, is this notion about being teachable, about being willing and eager to learn from others. And again, caring about people, it really, really matters. And so again, you can be this awesome candidate that would help an organization succeed, but if you're so self-focused and so self-absorbed that you can't be bothered by other people, it's just not going to work. So it's important for you to add value to everybody that you come in contact with. There's this story. I've got a friend named Akash, and he lives in Tampa, but he was at Florida State for his undergraduate, and he had a gentleman visiting his son and had to fly out of the Tallahassee Regional Airport, which is not a very big airport. It's like half the size of the Chattanooga Airport, which is not that big either. And so Akash was flying back to Philadelphia to visit his family. And then there's a gentleman that was in town and said, "Hey, I was wondering if you could do me a favor." It's like, sure. I mean, what? No skin off my nose. And so that he does this small favor. He gets something hand delivered to some office at Florida State. And And then Akash graduates. I think he even graduated in December, so he's kind of like off schedule. And he thought about getting connected. So he had this gentleman offered Akash his business card. And so he learned that he was actually an executive for a publisher and he was interested in that kind of work. And so he contacted this gentleman and said, you might not remember me, but I was, and he kind of laid out the situation. And this executive says, Akash, I'm so glad that you called me. I remember the kindness that you extended to me. I appreciate your follow through. You did a great job. I'd be delighted to introduce you to some people and even try to advocate for you. And it all was made possible because Akash was ready to meet someone, ready to engage them in conversation, and then add value to that person by serving them in some small way. And again, that kind of gets back to that feeling, Monica, about that whole transactional quality about it. But again, if you're authentically giving out of your abundance of your time or your availability, I think folks are more likely willing to reciprocate. So go out of the way and connect with them. Now, again, this is that COVID slide, right? So how do you connect in person? Again, you can connect online, but nothing helps a relationship bloom than just getting together in person. So once you define or understand that there's this common interest, meet them there. So maybe it's maybe you both like to go hiking. I like to go hiking with my kids and my wife and my dog. I think that's fun. So if there's another family that likes to hike, we'll go out on a Saturday for probably a half mile too long, and that's super great. Or if you both like to eat certain cuisine or cook certain cuisine, hey, let's meet up at the Publix on the North Shore and let's come up and let's grab some ingredients and let's make some food together. That would be a great way to do that. That's a little bit harder with COVID. I'll admit that. But again, when you can't meet in person, you should still be connecting. And so understand your purpose. And so, if you're trying to connect with someone personally, I think that could be like catching up. That's kind of like me working LinkedIn to say, I don't need anything. I don't want anything. I just want to see how you're doing. And again, that's super refreshing because when you're on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people that'll kind of throw a lot of stuff at you. But when you're connecting with someone professionally, look for something you can contribute. And so maybe there's an employer in town that you've met and you're trying to restart a conversation. I think offer them a little bit of assistance. So maybe you'd like to meet some folks around this my academic specialization, and maybe there would be a conversation that I can introduce you to the advisor or whatever else. So again, think about ways in which you can enhance or add value to the person. And again, it's always important that you wrap up one conversation with plans for the next, right? So I'm going to say to you on our next slide, I said, hey, there's some other great sessions within Mind the Gap that I really encourage you to check out. So that would be the next conversation we have. So I'm going to try to model that for you. But even in a networking situation, if you meet someone at a career fair, again, I'm going to use 2019 language, shake their hand, make great eye contact, and say, hey, I want to shoot you an email tomorrow, and we'll talk about when we maybe set up a time we can have the next conversation. I think that kind of forwardness is appreciated, and it's really, really helpful. So here's the application challenge. I want you to attempt to connect with someone. And again, you can incorporate the stuff that I've included in these slides, or if you want to do your own thing, that's fantastic. But just attempt to connect with someone and tell me how it went. And it could be someone that you previously connected to that you've lost track of, or maybe this is someone that you're living with that you've had a little bit of interaction with, but not a ton, whatever that might look like. But just try to connect with them and really go down deep if you wouldn't mind, and just send me a quick email and let me know how it went. So you'll see that there's 3 or 4 other sessions that I think that are kind of related to this topic that you might like to also check out. But I think we've got like 2 minutes, which is not a long time. But are there any other questions or anything that you'd like to offer? No, we covered it all. That's fantastic. Okay. Well, good. Well, thank all four of you for joining today and for this session. And so we'll probably kick over to the daily recap or the review session, and then hopefully you'll come back in tomorrow and the following day, and we'll go forward from there. But thank you so much. Really appreciate y'all.
Thank you.